Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Please find your seats. Please find your seats and prepare for this morning's service. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. My name is Linda Brennison, and I'm your service leader today. Our minister is Reverend Stephen Robinson. Our services are streamed on YouTube and Zoom, but no matter how you choose to join us, you are always welcome. We encourage everyone to read the announcements in our order of service using the QR code provided. The QR code is right here on the bottom inside page. We have two QR codes in the order of service. This one will take you to our announcements, and the one on the back will take you to our webpage if you want to make a donation online. We have that. So we have two QR codes, and I thought I would just take a moment to explain what we use those for. But also, if you don't like the QR code thing, which I've come to really like it myself, you just use your camera app in your phone. But if you don't like that, we have out there in the foyer on that table, we have a paper list of all of our events, everything. It's like three pages long, legal size. So if you like paper, we have it that way. And also we will have some announcements. Our calendar and such will be on the TV in the social hall. So I'm not sure how you could miss our announcements. They also come out weekly in our weekly e-blast. And if you don't get that and you would like to, you just need to give us your email address, and our administrator will send those announcements to you every week. So announcements, we have a plenty of those about our events. We like to reserve this time for worship if at all possible. We welcome families with children. Today, children and youth are invited to bring the toys and books found at the back of the social hall to their seats while they stay in service with their parents. For infants and children to age 5, we do have a nursery, and we provide childcare. We'd always love to have more childcare volunteers. As well as volunteers, we offer paid positions for childcare for the up to age 5. And to be a volunteer, we'd like you to see Bethany Storlazzi or Jonathan White. I'm not sure if they're here today, but most days they are here, and they'll be glad to help you with the volunteer process if you're interested. Also, this morning I have a very special announcement on behalf of the Denominational Connections Committee. Briefly, the Denominational Connections Committee is a committee that we have to keep us connected with our denomination, which is the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, our denomination. Okay, here's the announcement from them. We hope you already have on your calendar the 2 upcoming teachings on the proposed revision of Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. But here's a reminder. We're doing 2 new classes. Even if you've been to prior discussions, please join us because we have new materials with food for thought and discussion. The first session will start at 12:30 next Sunday, February the 11th, in the social hall. And we'll have snacks for all the participants, so don't worry about getting hungry. Please plan to attend. Everyone is welcome. If you have any questions about this event, please talk to Pat Moore or Deb Matherly. And now, please silence all devices as we center ourselves for today's service and listen to the prelude.
About this, all I can say is you'll recognize the song right away, but we did do special words to fit today's theme.
Thank you so much. Please stand and join me in the congregational covenant in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. We are a covenantal religion, which means that we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other the same, with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. We side with love, embracing and welcoming all people. Our board members and committee chairs welcome your questions and comments. Board members may be recognized by their green name tags. Now we would like to recognize any guests or visitors who are here today. So visitors, please wait for the microphone, and this morning Wyatt will be bringing around the microphone. Wyatt, would you come up, please? Rise if you wish, and share with us your name, where you are from, and if you have guests with you, please feel free to introduce them. We really need to let Wyatt bring the microphone today, so I know that we have at least one guest out here. There we go, thank you.
Thanks, Wyatt. Hey y'all, I am Bridget Brown from right down the road, and I am here this morning on behalf of South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center, so I thought I'd wait a minute for the introduction, but I'll be the one, so here I am. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Bridget. Anyone else be brave and let my, thank you. Here's another one.
Hi, I'm Pauline Doty, and I live in the community at Finley House, and I've been here now the second time, but I'm just anxious to get acquainted, and I love what I feel is the welcoming spirit here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome. There's one other lady back there, Wyatt.
I am visiting from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. My name is Patricia Johnson, and this is my son, Basil, who lives here.
Oh.
So we're visiting your church for the first time.
Thank you. Okay, we're so glad to have everyone, whether you stand or not. But thanks to those who did. Thank you, Wyatt, for your help. Visitors, if you would like to know more about UUCC, please fill out a visitor card found in the back of each chair. There's a little pocket in the back of the chair, and so if you look in front of you, you'll see a card there. And if you fill that out, and especially if you give us your email address, we will send you all of our events via email, which I mentioned earlier. Place that in the collection plate. That's how we'll get it. Okay, and now we have our chalice lighting. And our chalice lighter today is Laura Miller. Yeah. Spirit of light and life, come unto us. Thank you, Laura.
I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, number 1066, O Brother Sun. This is in your teal hymnal. Please stand as you're willing and able to join in singing. It's a little bit newer one, so I'm going to play it once all the way through before we sing.
can be seated. Our opening words today are entitled Imbolc by Aaron Williams and Madeline Bro. It is no longer Christmas or Yule or Hanukkah. Our family's traditions have all been packed away in boxes and stored in the basement until next year. Many days are still gray and cold, but it isn't really winter anymore. It isn't as dark. The days are stretching longer. Sunlight extends into the evening now. And yet, it is not spring. This is a time of waiting. This is a turning time, an in-between time, a liminal time. Imbolc refers to fire in the belly, what is yet to be born, what is still gestating, ruminating. My fire is making art. My fire is sitting in the sun or watching the stars. My fire is the projects I want to do and the stories I want to write. What projects are you imagining? What trips are you planning? What exciting spark is dancing inside of you currently? Who are you becoming? Imbolc is Brigid, the goddess of healers and poets, goddess of the forge where tools were made in fires, where the earth provides us nourishment. The ice is melting now and the water trickles into the yawning earth. The seeds are waiting. This is a time of pausing and checking in, questioning. Are you ready to go outside on this cold morning, to feel the sunlight and know how much you are loved? Or is that too much? Are you like the groundhog, seeing your shadow and needing more time to ruminate, to sit at the heart of yourself? Sometimes things seem so uncertain, but I know that the seasons are circles, and I trust that endlessness. I know that there is a fire inside all of us, and that is our potential. That is how much we can love. So even during these in-between days, I celebrate the pause. I trust the circle, and I remember that the sun is returning, the ice is melting, and the earth is stirring. This time I invite our children and youth to join me down front for the story for all ages. Good morning. I'm going to sit down with you all. Whoa. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Can you say good morning? All right, that's the good morning that we get right there. Perfect. So I want to tell you a little story, and it's a story about a boy and a girl. The boy's name is Alex, and the girl's name is Bridget. And so they went to their mom one day, and they said, "Mom, we are tired of it being winter. It's so cold outside." They didn't live in South Carolina, I guess. "So it's so cold outside, we're tired of winter. When is it going to be spring?" And you know what the mom said? "You should ask the fire, and the goddess Bridget will tell you what you need for winter to be over." So they went to the fire and they asked, "Fire, tell us, when is winter going to be over?" And you know what? All of a sudden, out of the fire, make sure it's right side up, Bridget appeared. Out of the fire. And she told them two things. She said, "You will know that winter is over and spring is coming when every home in your village has a fire in the fireplace, and the well, the spiritual well in the woods, is flowing." So they were like, "Well, that sounds pretty complicated." But you know what? Goddesses in our stories always give us those kind of answers, right? And so what they started doing is said, well, if every home's got to have a fire, we'll start looking. So they looked at every home, and every place they went, there was a fire going, and they would say, well, great, you're nice and warm. But there was one house out in the corner that nobody ever visited, and his name was Mr. Grumbly. And I don't know if that was his real name or not, but that's what they called him, Mr. Grumbly. And no one would visit him. He lived alone, and people were scared of him. And they said, well, we got to go, because it said every home. So if winter is going to be over, we got to go. And so they went to Mr. Grumbly's house, and sure enough, there was no fire. And it was just as cold inside as it was outside. And he was shivering, and Mr. Grumbly hadn't eaten anything. And so they said, do you need some food? And Mr. Grumbly said, go away, leave me alone. I think that's how he got his name, Mr. Grumbly. But they said, you need a fire. And you know what they were really saying? We need a fire, because winter won't be over unless there's a fire. And so they went out and they got some wood and they built a fire and got the warm stuff going in the house. And then they cooked a meal and made a little stew for Mr. Grumbly and fed him, and he was a little less grumbly. So then they said, well, he might know where the well is. They said, we have to get a fire in every fireplace, but we also have to help with this well. And he said, there used to be this well behind the house, and it wasn't like a well like, you see where you dip a bucket in. It was a well that was natural where water flowed. And he said, but you know what? Nobody took care of it. And so it's kind of filled up with branches and stone. And it used to be water for the people and all the creatures. But now it just won't even flow. And so he helped them go out into the woods, and they cleared away the branches, and they cleared away the rocks, and all of a sudden the water started flowing again. And he was happy, he was fed, and he went back to his warm fireplace, and you know what? On their way back home, they saw the first signs of spring. Little flowers that were starting to bud up out of the snow and get ready to bloom. So what does that tell you about what do you have to do to help winter get over? Get a fire in every fireplace, right? And make sure the well is going. What it tells me is that spring is also something that you think about in your mind too, right? That when we take care of everybody and make sure everybody is fed, when we make sure that the earth around us is taken care of and doing what it needs to do, then we are helping bring spring and love and hope and all these beautiful things into our world. So thank you for the wisdom of Bridget to help us remember that we can bring about spring too. And thank you all for coming down this morning. I saw your eye in that, Chuck. I know you wanted to see that Bridget a little bit closer up. So at this time, we move to our candles of community in our service. Time for us to light our fire and add to our fire that is here. Our fires of hope for those who are experiencing sadness and grief and sorrows, but also a fire of community and sharing joys that we want to bring into the space. We always have candles for those who are visiting. We always have candles in the front that you can pick up and participate in this part of our service. So at this time, I invite you to come and briefly share your joy or concern.
Hello, everybody. We have a new baby joining the church. Layla Yunt was born on January 3rd. So she's in the back there with Carrie and Lena. Yep. So make sure to say hi to her and welcome her to the church. It's our joy.
I don't know, for some reason I was thinking about this last night. As some of you know, I'm a advocate for mental health, and this is a candle of concern for those people who are struggling with mental health. You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to, I don't care what time it is, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, get my phone number, hit me up on Facebook, whatever, because I would rather lose sleep helping you through your struggles than any other alternative.
This is a candle in memory of Jesse Lauricella. Jesse was the lead singer, founder, and spark of a band that I played in many years ago called Mandarico. Did about 500 shows with them all up and down the East Coast. That was a life-changing experience. And although Jesse and I never had an uncomplicated relationship, and though we've been out of touch many years, it is sad to hear that he died prematurely a couple of weeks back. So, in memory of Jesse.
Hi, I'm Larry Siegel. I'm just putting in a plug for Savannah, the city, not a person by that name. And anyway, I was there for several days this week. My sister and daughter came in from California, and it's just such a great city. They came, I drove, but they came from the airport, and that's the easiest airport to get in and out of anywhere. And it has all these gorgeous squares and an amazing history. And we did a lot of tours, and I didn't realize that James Williams from the Garden of Good and Evil did a lot of bad things, but he also saved all those wonderful houses, 60 of them apparently, in Savannah, and it has that School of Art and Design, so it was pretty cool.
I'm Glenn Farr, and I am observing what for me is a significant milestone. As of Wednesday of this week, I am a published novelist. My book is called Favored Son, and it's about an Atlanta media executive who returns to his central South Carolina hometown to resolve some significant childhood trauma, and in so doing, he opens a big can of worms. Some of you are already reading it. I'm grateful, and I'll just let you know I'm working on the sequel.
Hi, I'm Emilio Perez. This is a candle in memory of our cat that passed away this Friday. She was a very cute cat, but she was very sick, so we had to put her down. And I know Nancy is having a hard time with it, but this is for our cat.
Good morning. Got a candle of celebration and gratitude. For the first time in 6 years, I actually celebrated my birthday. And a couple weeks ago, I turned 50. And yeah. And last night, actually went out and had some fun, and lots of people had to cancel, but my UUC people showed up, so thank you. So gratitude, thank you.
I am without a candle, but the joy will not wait. Today, we're thinking particularly about the partner church in Besterce, Romania. We've been friends with them for 34 years. Oh, thank you. I am not. There's a virtual age, but I don't have to. But in 1990, Lee Mingy and Julian Mingy went to Besterce. That was right after the Berlin Wall fell, but before the absolute end of the Soviet Union. But it's been that long since we have been friends with that congregation. So the UUA has noted that we are one of the most enduring and successful and active partnerships that they helped match up. Tonight, we're having this wonderful event and entertainment that all of these talented people will entertain and put on. All of the donations of refreshments are all given. Year after year, our congregation has kept working towards a relationship with that congregation. What I have realized as we have been planning this auction, we said it's a tiny little auction, but a few people have stepped forward to offer a dinner or a sailboat ride. And we thought, is this really worth our time to organize a little auction? But yes, it is, because what we've realized about this whole thing is that that church, 40 people, I always cry, 40 people in Romania, 5,000 miles away from here, 7 time zones away, have brought us together to do this work. And it helps build our friendships and our relationships. So they're doing us a great service by being our partner church. And I hope you will come tonight and be involved and go on the pilgrimage. This is the first time that we're sending Stephen, a minister. This is the first time that we've brought, I think 8 times we've brought their ministers. This is the first time we've sent ours to meet them. So this is a year of firsts. And it is definitely, there's not that much great news coming out of Eastern Europe, but this is great news.
And our last candle we hold for all those joys and those concerns that are being held silently. Take a minute and remember all that you heard, and take a few deep breaths and feel that connection of community. As we prepare for our offering this morning, a reminder that our Share the Plate recipient this month is the South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center. And you've already met Bridget Brown, who's going to come and share a little bit about the great work of the center.
I'm a little shorter than everybody else who's spoken thus far. Thank you all so much for having me. I am Bridget Brown, and as of January 1st, I am the new Executive Director of South Carolina Appleseed Legal Justice Center. Thank you. And this sermon today feels particularly poignant. I will say, for those of you who know and love Sue Berkowitz, she is still with South Carolina Appleseed. She has just stepped into the role of policy director. So hasn't retired, hasn't gone anywhere, which I am also thrilled about. So I have been with Appleseed for going on 6 years now, and as long as I have been with Appleseed, this congregation has been an incredible partner. But for those of us who are newer or just need a refresher, South Carolina Appleseed is a nonprofit law firm, and we advocate on behalf of low-income South Carolinians across the state. Our goal is systems change, and we work to remove the racial and economic barriers to justice, with the goal of hopefully one day working ourselves out of a job, but we've sure got a lot of work to do. So we do that by lobbying at the State House, through impact or class action litigation, and through educating our community partners, policymakers, and fellow attorneys. Currently, we are most engaged in the affordable housing crisis and eviction issues. We are working to expand access to healthcare and Medicaid, and also in a litany of consumer protection issues, namely getting an interest rate cap on things like payday loans. So the work that we do relies wholly on our partnerships. Our partnerships with people who are directly impacted by unjust laws and policies, because that group of people informs our work and directs our work, but also we rely on partnerships with the greater community and groups and congregations like this one to not only get the word out, but to tell policymakers and those who are in positions of power that these issues matter to more than just the people who are directly impacted by them, that they matter to us as a community. So when I was getting ready to take on this role, and I was giving a lot of thought to what does that mean for me, and how do I prepare for that? And I kept coming back to 4 words, that it would require of me boundless compassion and relentless hope. And already in this room, I can feel that this group of people also embodies these notions. And so it's just so cool to be here with y'all today. And I so appreciate your continued interest and support of South Carolina Appleseed. So thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Really appreciate you in your new role, coming and celebrating that with us. And believe it or not, hoping relentlessly is actually written into the sermon today. So you're right, it's a good tee up for the sermon that's coming. If you want to donate, you can do that through our website. You can also contribute cash to the plate, as we do a share the plate, or use an offering envelope to go directly to the Appleseed Justice Center. This time, turn it over to JP to introduce our offertory as our ushers come and receive our morning offering.
If you're familiar with the song, please feel free to sing along. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? And how many seas must a white dove sail before she rests in the sand? And how many cannonballs must fly through the air before they're forever banned? Well, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in. Yes, and how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And how many years must some people exist before they're allowed to be free. And how many times can some people turn their heads and pretend that they just do not see? Well, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must some people look up before they see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he hears people cry? And how many deaths till it take till we know that too many people have died? Well, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many fires must burn in our bellies before we cleanse them with love? And how many winters will it take to transform our passions into rebirth? Well, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Well, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. Yes, the answer is blowing in the wind. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Sharing lyrics with Bob Dylan, adapted by JP Flood, right? Thank you for that. We receive our offering this morning, our commitment to our good work. So in keeping with Linda's great job of getting our service started as the service leader, this is a reminder that if any point during the sermon you get bored or just unengaged, disengaged, there's a QR code in our program that will take you to some puzzles and games that will keep you occupied until Stephen finally sits down. So. You're welcome. I don't know what to think about those of you that are already looking for that QR code. haven't even started yet. I do want to invite you to somewhat of a guided meditation, and for many of us, this is gonna really require you to use your imagination, because I'm gonna ask you to imagine a world around us that is covered in snow and ice. And maybe you have to date back about a decade if you live here in South Carolina or have lived in this area all of your life. But we also know that anytime it snows, by the time we start to enjoy it, it is melting, and it's rare for us to stay completely blanketed in snow here. And maybe you have experience in that in other places, and it's not such a stretch. But I do want you to imagine a world around you that has been covered in snow and ice for weeks at this point, and that you are wandering around in this snow, feeling and finding a place, looking for a place of some hope in the darkness and the cold of winter, to find new life that is breaking through. And the more you wonder, the more hopeless you feel as you're wandering around in this cold. Every direction you look is nothing but ice and snow and freezing rain, droplets and snow in the air. Trees have surrendered any sense of life, and the snow has covered everything on the ground. Everything you see is frozen, including yourself. But as you continue walking and searching, you do find a place where it looks like the ground is warming up enough to start thawing the snow and the ice. And you look and see that there is water trickling. You look and see that the ground is beginning to be seen through the snow and the ice. You see the humus from all of the things that have died, the plant life that have died, that is going to be the seedbed of new life. But then, out of the corner of your eye, you catch the beautiful sight of a green stalk, 2 little linear leaves, and you know that a blossom is coming. And as you stand in the winter, you just stare at that green piece in the midst of all of that snow. Think about how you feel, and that feeling is the season of Imbolc. We are reminded that the wheel is turning, and the days are starting to lengthen. The sun is starting to creep in more to the afternoon and early evenings. And just for the sake of our imagination, as we look outside, the snow is starting to melt out there. We actually have, Linda McLeod and I were talking about this last week, we actually have the opposite problem here. We have flowers that get tricked, that go into full bloom, and then all of a sudden we're back to winter again. That's what it's like living here. But midway point between winter solstice and spring equinox is this season of Imbolc. It is an ancient Celtic tradition that was first mentioned in literature, at least in the 10th century, but was believed to be practiced at least a millennial before that. Celebrations that took form in the festival honoring the pagan goddess Brigid that we talked about with the story for all ages, who was evoked in fertility blessings and oversaw poetry, crafts, and prophecy, worshipped by the class of poets and historians among the Celts of ancient Ireland and Britain. Brigid was considered one of the most powerful Celtic deities, the daughter of Dagda, the oldest god in the Celtic pantheon. She takes on 3 forms. Sometimes she's described as being one of 3 sisters, but usually she takes on 3 forms. She's the goddess of crafts and fertility. She's the goddess of healing and the goddess of poetry. And she was believed to be born with fire in her head. And so she's always portrayed with these images of fire and light around her. The Catholic Church, being as welcoming as they can be, adopted her as a saint a little bit later. So now, I think it's February 1st in the Catholic tradition, is the Feast of Saint Brigid, really bringing the Celtic traditions into the church. We can talk a lot about how that's happened in many ways. But the word literally means in the belly, and sometimes points to the fire that's in the belly. It's the image of the lambs who are ready to give birth. It's the seeds planted in the ground of Mother Earth, ready to give way to life and growth. Winter solstice is about the hope of light and life returning. Imbolc is about the promise of spring being realized with small signs of that fire around us. John Beckett, in writing, describes spring as a cause for celebration. But spring is also a time of labor, of sharpening tools and preparing the ground, preparing the seeds and planting and moving animals to pasture. Spring is one of the busiest times in the agricultural cycle. And it tells us to get ready and to go to work. Beckett says, only this year maybe we need to plant some different crops in some different fields. These metaphorical fields that he describes are the emphasis of where we need to place our energy and our work. Where are the fields that you want to plant your energy in this year ahead? Where do you want to take the fire that is in your belly and let it impact our culture around us, and not just be something that burns within you, but actually has transforming power around us? Naturally, if you are doing a sermon on fire in the belly, you have to look to books that you've read, especially if they're sharing the same title. And Sam Keen has a book that he wrote entitled Fire in the Belly, and although it has often been taken as a book on the men's movement, which was a response to the feminist movement, Sam Keen himself says, well, certainly it's confessional and I'm a man, but it's really an invitation to all to look at the fire in the belly, to look at every human being. It's a human experience, to pay attention to the fire that's burning within us and see what it causes us to do. He says the fire, if you pay attention to it and you let it burn and you look for those signs, will invite you to a heroic journey. And that heroic journey will lead you out of the self and then into the world, where you move from me, which is often associated with winter, how can I survive, to we, where you move from the solitary self of isolation to community. And maybe even in modern terms, Keen says where you move from sitting in therapy to action and doing something different. The fire in the belly is the powerful force inside all of us that calls us as individuals to this heroic journey and calls you and me as a congregation to the heroic journey, nurturing heroic virtues. I love this particular festival and the Wheel of the Year because it involves fire, and so do we. We have potentially hazardous fire down here to my left. I'm making sure one of my jobs here is not in my LOA and my job description, but one of my jobs here is to make sure none of those candles touch, because if they do, they start a huge fire down there. But our chalice is the symbol of our fire. It is a symbol of our faith. It is a symbol of our passion. It is a symbol of our relentless hope and compassion in the world. It is the symbol of who we are, the ability to burn within, but also burn and transform in our world around us. It is the symbol of the heroic journey that we take as a congregation. In Sam Keen's book, he invites us to pay attention to that fire and pay attention to the call of the fire that calls us on the heroic journey. And then out of that fire, virtues come. So I just want to share some of the virtues that Keen shares in his book. Keen focuses mostly and thinks it's most important, the virtue of wonder being primary. He actually came back years later and wrote a book just about the virtue of wonder. And he describes wonder in his terms as something that you can't necessarily explain, but you know when you experience it. And for him, experiencing wonder was spending any given day with his father. And so I share a story that he shares of what it was like to be a son to his father. He says, a trip to anywhere with my father was more of a meander than a straight line. If on the way to the store, he got the idea that strawberries were in season, he would remember that. And he would remember that he knew a farmer a few miles out of town who grew the plumpest, reddest, most succulent strawberries, and off we would go. Instead of going to the store, we would head off to the farm. And on our way to the farm, we might be interrupted by the most spectacular sunset, for which he would wheel the car off to the side of the road to appreciate it properly and invite us to get out of the car and say, look at that, shaking his head in amazement. Did you ever see such a sight? We know people like this in our lives, right? That invite us to pause and look at the beauty around us. One of my favorite Far Side cartoons is an image of two dogs, and the mailbox says the roses, and there's two dogs there, and there's another two dogs that are knocking on the door and saying, we just had the greatest idea that while we were out walking, we should stop and smell the roses. Sorry about that one. Sometimes when I share those, I realize I can't pull them back in. It's like, they're out there, they're on YouTube now, and it's like, oh my goodness. But I would invite you to take a walk with someone that is in touch with wonder. Whether it be some adult that you know that will allow you, like Keen's dad, to pause and not worry about where you're going, but to stop and see what you're seeing. Maybe take a walk with a child, because they do anything but walk in a straight line. Meandering is what they do, and stopping to look at different things and going backwards sometimes and going this way and that and looking. We can never allow ourselves to lose touch with wonder around us. That fire within us has to nurture this virtue, because it's the virtue that helps us find value and hope in everything and in every person and in every situation. We are relentlessly hopeful here at the UU. King goes on to say that wonder is to open ourselves to the gift of being with a sense of gratitude. And before we can act with integrity, before we can think with respect, we must pause to wonder. Some other virtues that I will mention, he shares the virtue of empathy, which he describes as opening ourselves to the feelings of others. King describes empathy as being emotionally available to everyone around you. He describes the virtue of a heartful mind, and his good friend and professor and mentor, Howard Thurman, who he stayed in relationship with, connected with for all of his life. Thurman told him that the heartful mind means that you have to find the balance between the heart and the mind, which was so great to experience that on an academic campus, to find someone who said, this is got to be in balance. I remember the dean of my divinity school saying to me, you do not want to go into the academic field because we are all out of balance, and you still have a heart. Like, well, why can't we have both? Why can't we nurture both of those? And Thurman demonstrated for Keene how you can live with that balance. There's another virtue he describes as moral outrage, being stirred at the core of our being, not just in our head, but being stirred at the core of our being with injustice that we see. The virtue of right livelihood, finding work that nurtures our soul and gives us meaning, whether it's the way we earn a living or not. What are we doing with our time in a way that nurtures our soul and gives meaning to our lives? The virtues of enjoyment and friendship, nurturing activities and relationships that give you joy, but also causes you to be a person who creates joy for other people. I think we're very much in touch with the things that we enjoy, but go home and look in the mirror and say to yourself, am I a person that brings joy into other people's lives? Quite a challenge. If not, I've got some more fireside cartoons that you can share and at least bring a little bit of levity, if not joy. King describes the virtue of communion and community, places to really know others and be known by others, that the fire in our being, the Imbolc fire in our gut, will cause us to be connected in community and not live in isolation, but not just attend and be here, but actually be here, be known by others, do the work to know other people. And then the value of an ethical cultivation of the earth, that our relationship to the earth has to produce ecological ethics and integrity. I was responsible for picking Keene up from the airport once in Jacksonville for a conference we were having at Jekyll Island. And I had read Keene and several of his books and seen several of his lectures. And so all I could think about was, how can I get from the airport in Jacksonville to the conference center in Jekyll without saying something totally wrong to this man? So as we were traveling, I was delighted. We'd been 30 minutes into the trip and we were talking, and he was a man in his 70s who decided to live wildly, that we'll talk about a little bit later. But he decided to take up the art of the trapeze at the age of 70. So he was telling me all about that. So another activity for us to consider here at the UUCC. But as we were driving and getting closer to Jekyll and going across some of the bridges, he was looking around, and Being from Northern California, I don't know that he had ever been to that part of the country off the coast of Georgia, and he was looking at all the wetlands, the marshes, and then he goes very angrily, "They built a Walmart on top of all of that beautiful marshland?" I was like, yes, they did. I saw that. And I looked, and he actually started to cry, looking at the Walmart. And it was just this long, awkward pause of he's just grieving marshlands being destroyed. And me being the young person that I was at the time and feeling insecure, I just said to him, "You know, I didn't personally build the Walmart. You said you built a Walmart. I don't do Walmart. I don't build Walmarts." I didn't really say that to him. That would have been horrible. I did think about it, though. Thankfully, I filtered that out, and we began to talk about just the damage that we sometimes create to our world around us. The last virtue I'll share is his virtue of wildness. And in that moment, he said, I love Mary Oliver's poem that invites us to a wild and precious life. What does it look like to be wild for ourselves? What does it look like to be a congregation that nurtures wildness? Well, this is what it looks like right here. But he says we should never allow ourselves to be too domesticated, but to get out in the wilderness, because that's where you get to be wild. Whether it's a real wilderness or whether it's the wilderness of our culture around us that is definitely needing people to navigate the wildness of our culture. I invited the folks who attended the retreat at the mountain to get barefoot at the mountain and spend at least 30 minutes barefoot touching the earth. What a great thing to do in the middle of the winter, to get out in our 65-degree weather today, barefoot in the winter wonderland of Columbia, South Carolina. But to be wild, these virtues are fuel for our work. And remember the words of Beckett, that spring is a time of enjoyment for sure, but spring is also a time of work. So in this Imbolc, we have enjoyed the signs of life returning, the warmth and the length of days. The sun is warming the earth under our feet, and the fire of Bridget is sparking the fire in our bellies. So as we enjoy and celebrate the spring, we also need to know that it's time for us to get to work. In a few weeks, we're going to kick off the pledge drive here at our congregation and think about where we invest our money and how we want to invest our money going forward as a congregation. Today is the day to think about how you want to plow fields and prepare fields around us and how you want to get to work and take this fire that's burning within you and change our world around us.
Our closing hymn is number 1028, The Fire of Commitment, and it's in your teal hymnal. Please stand and join me in singing as you're willing and able.
Remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear.
Our closing words, as you remain standing, come from Maël Brigday, who is a scholar of the goddess Bridget, but also identifies as a keeper of the flame. I invite you to hold your belly while we read this together, while I read it to you, or focus on our chalice that is burning bright in front of us. Her reflection is, why I tend your flame. Why return always to this endless ritual, you offering me the glowing coal to kindle my own small fire, because I am so forgetful. I strike the match, and before the wick is blackened, I'm 1,000 miles away, planning, worrying, angry, wishful, hurrying to accomplish this and that, and if I'm so very grateful, why return in that moment when I take a breath and place the candle in its lantern, the lantern in its cauldron, and I pour water clean and fresh around the base, when I add the blue juniper and whispering words of honoring and sharing and blessing, when I open my hands to receive the bright coal, my heart opens with them, and I glimpse the wider land, the wider life, and I come closer for one fraction of a second to being awake. Awake that this is your gift to me and mine to you again and again in this moment of igniting my soul.
Please join in our congregational benediction.
Special thanks to everybody who was here for this service today, and especially thank Bridget for being here to represent South Carolina Appleseed Justice. Hopefully you can stick around and give us a chance, people, to talk to you as well. And great name, right, for the work that you do. If you're visiting with us for the first time or second or third time, please stick around and give us an opportunity to get to know you as you get to know us. Thank you all for being here.